The lights returned to where it all began. Not the stage, but the sound. A single mic. A voice learning how to carry more than itself. Time had passed, but the rhythm never stopped. Each breath they took was a promise. To keep singing, even when no one was listening. For Ray, the silence had grown heavier than applause. For Ryan, every song still began with someone else's voice. For Kian, fire kept burning for something he couldn't yet name. And for Shun this time, the spotlight found him first. A call came from across the sea, a stage waiting in another language. A chance for the quietest member to lead. This is We Are SNWB, Episode 5, In Our Breath. SNWB! Backstage was smaller than it looked on broadcast. The roar of the crowd still bled through the walls, but here it felt like silence had taken over. The boys sat in a row, water bottles untouched, makeup half-smudged under the harsh fluorescence. No one said much. No one had to. The weight of second place spoke louder than words. The door burst open. Their manager, breathless, phone still in hand. "Japan called," he said, voice cutting straight through the room. "A TV show wants SNWB to perform. Your first overseas schedule." For a beat, they just stared. Ray blinked first, his polished grin slipping back into place. Kian leaned forward, fire in his eyes that refused to dim. Ryan exhaled, the quiet leader pulling his shoulders straighter. And Shun froze. Japan. His home, his language, his stage. The others would call it their debut abroad. For him, it was something else. Ryan's voice broke the silence, low but firm. "Our matinee will be our guide." He looked straight at Shun, no teasing in his tone, only wait. "You'll show us how it's done." Shun's throat tightened. He managed a nod, small at first, then firmer when Ray clapped his shoulder in support. Kian leaned back with a half-smile, half-fire, half-challenge while Ryan's steady gaze held just long enough to make Shun believe it. The ride out was chaos. Security pushed them through the narrow hallways, then the side doors, where the air split open with screams. Fans surged against barriers, voices shouting their names, red light sticks glowing like flares in the dark. The van door slid open and they climbed inside, but the sound didn't fade, it grew. Phones flashed, lenses greedy for every glimpse, proof of their survival after a loss. Kian sat closest to the window. The chant outside pounded against the glass until it felt like it was shaking. He rolled the window down halfway, arm lifting in a quick wave. The reaction was instant. Screams doubled, fans pressed forward, the guards struggling to hold the line. "Close it!" The manager snapped from the front seat. "Do you want someone to get hurt?" Kian's hand froze mid-wave. The glass slid back up, his grin faltering into something softer caught between apology and defiance. "But they waited for us." He muttered, voice low but sharp enough to cut through the silence. "I know," the manager shot back, tone firm. "But it could be dangerous for them, not just us. It's a rule." The words lingered heavier than the shouts outside. Inside, Ray scrolled his phone, jaw set. Ryan leaned back, eyes closed. Shun pressed his palms together in his lap, gaze slipping sideways, toward the phone clutched in his pocket, toward the words still echoing in his chest. SNWB! The dorm never felt the same after a stage. Even when the lights were off and the cameras far behind, the echo of noise lingered in the walls. Tonight was no different. They had bowed, they had lost, they had smiled for everyone else, but here, inside their own four corners, the silence pressed heavier than applause ever could. In the shared room, Kian was already halfway through the closet. Jackets flew onto the bed, shirts tangled on the chair, sneakers lined up with obsessive care. His energy hadn't dimmed from the van ride. It only shifted, spilling into the mess like sparks without direction. "Airport look is survival," he muttered, slipping into a bomber jacket, checking the mirror, then tossing it off with a shake of his head. "They'll photograph every angle, every mistake. One bad shot and it follows you for months." Shun sat cross-legged on the bed, a cap tugged low over his eyes, watching the storm unfold. He hadn't touched a single hanger. Instead, his hands twisted the brim of the cap until the fabric bent, as if the pressure could be folded into something smaller. He lifted it slightly. "Do I wear this?" The question was soft, almost swallowed by the sound of Kian's jacket hitting the floor. Kian turned, grinning wide. "Matinee, you're the one they'll stare at first. You don't just wear it, you own it." The words hit harder than Shun expected. His laugh slipped out, quiet and nervous, but it loosened something in his chest. The cap came back down, hiding the color that rose to his face, but the smile stayed even when he tried to smother it. Kian watched him for a second longer than needed, then turned back to the mirror. His reflection stared back, restless, unsatisfied, already searching for another answer in the closet. Across the hall, the mood was different, dimmer, quieter. Ryan sat at the edge of his bed, phone balanced in his hand, scrolling through the endless stream of fan comments. Ray leaned back against the headboard, towel draped around his neck, hair damp from the shower. His own phone buzzed now and then, but he wasn't looking at it. His gaze lingered on Ryan instead. "They're still voting for the fan club name," Ryan said finally, voice steady but low. His thumb paused, then flicked again, drawing more comments into view. Ray leaned closer, eyes narrowing at the screen. "What's on top?" Ryan scrolled slowly, the silence heavy between each flick. Names appeared in waves: Aurora, Nebula, Echoes, Wings, beautiful words, but none of them seemed to stick. Then his thumb stilled, holding the glow of one name that refused to disappear, repeated again and again until it drowned the others. "Fifth Pulse," Ryan said, almost under his breath. Ray frowned, tilting his head. "Fifth Pulse?" Ryan nodded, reading the comments aloud. "4 pulses on stage. We're the 5th. Always with you." His voice grew softer with each word, but steadier too, as if the fans themselves were speaking through him. Ray let out a quiet laugh, low and surprised. "They really named themselves." Ryan's smile curved, small but sure. "Maybe that's how it should be." The glow of the phone screen lit both their faces, the name Fifth Pulse burning brighter than the rest. For a long moment, neither moved. The word hung there, heavier than any company announcement, louder than any official title. It wasn't theirs to invent. It was already alive, chosen by the ones who filled the seats, who shouted their names, who waited outside in the dark even when they lost. The dorm carried both sounds that night, the muffled laughter of Kian and Shun wrestling with jackets and caps, and the quiet certainty of Ray and Ryan staring at a single name glowing through thousands of voices. Fifth Pulse. The boys hadn't spoken it aloud together yet, but the fans already had. And in that silence, it felt like the truest thing they'd been given all night.
SNWB!
The dorm sounded different in the morning. Less like a home, more like a hallway of closed doors, each member waking at his own pace, each carrying the night before in silence. Shun was the first to rise. The others were still shut away. Ray's room quiet except for the faint buzz of his phone. Ryan's desk lamp still burning from notes left unfinished. Kian's shoes abandoned by the door as if he'd collapsed straight into bed. Shun padded barefoot into the living room, phone in hand. The file from the manager blinked at him, still unopened. He hesitated, thumb hovering, then pressed play. Music spilled out, soft at first, a steady pulse that felt almost like a heartbeat. He closed his eyes, and for a moment, he was already there, on a stage across the sea, under lights not yet his, singing words that felt both foreign and inevitable. The track swelled, his breath shook, and then, almost without thinking, he sang along. The last line slipped out of him, soft but steady. The word barely left his lips before the sound of clapping broke through. Shun's eyes flew open. All 3 boys were out. Ray leaned against the frame, grin sharp but real. Ryan stood with his arms crossed, nodding slow, a quiet pride written in his eyes. Kian was the loudest, clapping hard enough to sting his palms, a grin stretching wide across his face. They crossed the room together, pulling Shun into a hug that knocked the phone right out of his hand. The laughter that followed was messy, sudden, alive, the kind of sound that didn't care about charts or crowns. "It does feel real, doesn't it?" Ryan said, voice rough but warm, hand still steady on Shun's back. Shun's throat tightened. He pulled away just enough to shout, voice breaking but fearless. "Who are we?" And without hesitation, all 3 answered in one voice, louder than any loss, stronger than any silence.
SNWB!
The conference room buzzed with screens and numbers, every chart and feed pulled up at once. The producer sat at the head of the table, the others spread around: engineer, choreographer, a pair of executives with brows furrowed. On the monitor, a clip looped again and again. Shun on stage during See New World Breath. Eyes lit beneath the harsh lights, voice breaking clear through the chorus. Another clip him laughing shyly during a fan interview segment, bowing a little too deep, the crowd screaming louder than expected. Then a fancam, shaky but electric, already passed 500,000 views overseas. The engineer pointed at the numbers scrolling alongside. Japan picked this up faster than we thought. His clips are trending in Tokyo. Osaka's trending buzz is climbing every day. The choreographer leaned forward. They're calling him the pure pulse, innocent, honest. It's sticking. If we wait, the wave moves on. If we move now, we anchor him there. One of the executives frowned. But he's the youngest. First overseas promotion, different press, different scale. Can he handle the pressure of being centered in a market this big? The room stilled. The producer glanced at the door. Bring him in. A moment later, Shun stepped inside. Cap low, posture hesitant, eyes flicking to the clip still playing on the monitor. His face flushed at the sound of his own laugh echoing through the room. Shun, the producer said evenly, Japan is responding to you, not just the group you, but there are concerns. You're young. This is more pressure than you've carried before. Tell us, do you think you're ready? Shun's hands tightened at his sides. For a second, he seemed to fold inward. Then he lifted his head. I know I'm young, he said softly. But that doesn't mean I'll break, if fans in Japan are cheering for us. For me, then I want to give them more. I don't want to waste what they're giving. The words weren't loud, but they landed sharp. The executive who had spoken against him leaned back, lips pressed but silent now. The choreographer nodded once, half-smile tugging. The engineer scribbled a note, already convinced. The producer studied Shun a moment longer before speaking. Ryan's ballad stays as planned in Korea, but Japan we double down. We drop a special track with you in focus. Not later, soon. We move while the market's open. Shun's eyes widened, breath catching, but he nodded. Steady. No one argued. And for once, everyone in the room agreed the center had a name.
SNWB.
The hallway outside the meeting room was quiet when Shun stepped out. The echo of voices, the producer, the executives, the faint hum of charts on a screen still rang in his ears. They wanted him to lead. They wanted his voice, his language. And suddenly, what had always felt like a small part of himself now carried the weight of a stage. He walked back to the dorm with his earbuds in, replaying the demo file sent to his phone. His voice filled his ears, clearer than he remembered, almost foreign in its confidence. By the time he stepped inside, the afternoon light had turned warm, softening the edges of everything it touched. The dorm was empty. Or quiet enough to feel that way. Suitcases leaned open near the couch, and someone had left an empty cup by the sink. Shun dropped his bag by the door, then sat on the edge of the rug, the phone still playing in his hand. The chorus swelled again, the part he had recorded yesterday. He hummed along under his breath, then sang the line once, just to hear how it felt in the air.
In the silence, I hear your call. 世界が僕を呼んでる.
The sound hung there, fragile but steady. It felt smaller without the studio walls, but more real somehow, like he was finally hearing himself. He didn't notice the door open until laughter carried in. Kian's voice was first, bright and easy. Sensei! You're back! Ray and Ryan followed close behind, still in their company hoodies, the air of training and sunlight clinging to them. Ray grinned as he dropped his bag on the couch. We just had a crash course in Japanese at the company lounge. Ryan smiled beside him, setting his phone down on the table. Basic greetings, performance cues, interview phrases. We thought we should at least try. Kian leaned against the doorway, folding his arms with a smirk. But we need a pronunciation check. You're the expert now. Shun blinked, caught between surprise and disbelief. You really took a lesson? Ryan nodded. You're leading us there. We should meet the audience halfway. The warmth of his words reached deeper than applause ever could. Shun smiled, the kind that came slowly, like dawn breaking. He put his phone down and motioned for them to sit. Okay, he said softly. Show me what you learned. They gathered around the low table. The sunlight fell across the floor in long golden stripes. Ryan opened a small notebook filled with neat writing. Ray leaned in close, reading from the page. Kian looked impatient but focused, repeating each phrase quietly. Ryan spoke first, his tone careful and deliberate. Otsukaresama desu. Shun smiled, nodding. Perfect. It means, thank you for your hard work. Next came Ray, voice steady and low as he read from the notebook. Gembarimasu. We'll do our best. That's right, Shun said softly, the warmth in his voice unguarded now. Then Kian looked up from his notes, hesitating for a breath before repeating the next phrase. Yoroshiku wanagashimasu, please take care of us. He said it slowly, each syllable pronounced with care. The room went still for a moment after that, as if the meaning itself had settled over them. Not just a line to memorize, but a promise shared. Just four boys speaking the same words with the same intention. The phrases weren't just language anymore, they were a bridge. Shun felt something tighten in his throat. He looked at them, Ray's patient grin, Ryan's steady focus, Kian's quiet pride, and the meaning hit deeper than translation could hold. Shun lowered his gaze, hiding the small smile that escaped anyway. He took a breath, and his voice steadied again. Then one more, he said, lifting his eyes. Isho ni iko. They repeated it after him, their tones uneven but sincere. Isho ni aiku. Let's go together. The words hung between them, warm and alive. Outside, the city was still loud, the world still spinning. But here, in this small, sunlit room, four voices found the same rhythm again. And when they finally fell silent, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt full of meaning, of promise, of something just beginning.
SNWB.
The dorm had finally gone still. From the room at the end of the hall came a faint mix of sounds. Shun's playlist, whispering through a phone speaker. Kian's laptop humming softly on the desk beside it. One was already asleep, the other halfway there, screen dimming as the last video froze on pause. Their shared space glowed in short pulses of light, then went quiet, two different rhythms slowly finding the same rest. Only one room stayed awake. Ray sat on the edge of the bed, one knee pulled up, the blue glow of his phone painting his face. Across from him, Ryan's bed was empty, sheets still neat, headphones looped around the mic stand by the window. From somewhere down the corridor came the faint sound of a voice, Ryan. Still rehearsing, chasing a note only he could hear. Ray scrolled without direction, eyes tired but restless. Then his thumb stopped on one name, Jin. He hadn't opened that thread in weeks. But tonight, after everything, Shun's quiet triumph, the laughter around the table, the way Ryan had looked at him across the light, the silence suddenly felt too sharp. He stared at the empty chat, the cursor blinking like it was waiting for him to breathe first. He typed, erased, typed again. And then, without thinking too hard, he let the truth come out. He told Jin he'd been thinking about him. That the days were long, the stages brighter, but somehow lonelier. And finally, almost to himself, he admitted it, that he missed their time together. He hit send before he could change his mind. The screen stayed still for a moment, then lit again. Incoming call. Jin. Ray froze. The sound was too loud in the small room. His hand hovered over the screen, the glow trembling across his face. Then the door opened. Ryan stepped in. You're still up? Ray looked up, startled. The phone buzzed again in his hand. He slipped it under the blanket before the sound could give him away. Yeah, he said quietly. Couldn't sleep. Ryan smiled, tired but kind. Big day tomorrow. Try to rest. He hung his towel by the chair and turned off the main light. The room sank in the blue shadow. Under the covers, the phone still glowed faintly. Jin's name flashing once, twice, then fading. The last vibration lingered against Ray's palm like a heartbeat that didn't want to stop.
SNWB.
Morning came faster than anyone wanted. The dorm was a storm of zippers and jackets, hair still damp from rushed showers, sneakers squeaking against the floor as each boy made his own final choice. Kian checked the mirror twice before stepping out. Survival look, he muttered, half to himself, half to Shun trailing behind with a jacket he hadn't even unfolded yet. Shun tugged it on awkwardly, fingers fumbling at the sleeves. Kian reached over without a word, straightening the collar, then smirked. Matinee center. Don't forget it. Ray emerged last, sunglasses in place, stride easy as if he had rehearsed this walk. Ryan was already waiting by the door, steady as ever, his quiet presence grounding the whirlwind around them. The van pulled up. The moment the doors slid open, the sound hit them deafening screams. Fans pressed against barriers, chants that carried their names in waves. Phones lifted like 1,000 stars, every flash burning their faces into memory. Security pushed them forward. They bowed, smiled, raised careful hands in greeting. Shun clutched his bag tighter, his steps small at first, until Kian nudged him with an elbow. "Own it," he whispered. And Shun did, lifting his head, waving with a shy grin that only made the crowd louder. Inside the terminal, the noise didn't fade. It echoed. Signs were raised, hand-painted banners declaring love in Korean, English, Japanese. The energy was chaos, but not hostile. It was heartbeat, collective and alive. Then at the top of the escalator, they froze. A billboard stretched across the concourse wall. Their faces, larger than life, beamed down wearing the sneakers from the shoot. Bold letters stamped beneath. "Run the beat, SNWB." The crowd screamed even louder, fans pointing, crying, chanting their name. The boys stood together, heads tilted back, the sight holding them for longer than it should. For a moment, loss and rivalry didn't matter. For a moment, they looked like they belonged here. Ryan moved first, pulling them forward. Check-in, security, boarding gates. The rituals blurred, each step louder inside their heads than outside. And the doors closed behind them.
SNWB.
On the night OBSIDIAN claimed the stage, SNWB walked into silence second place, heavy in their hands. But silence was never the end. Ray carried his burden with a smile that never cracked, even when the weight pulled deeper. Ryan gave more than anyone asked, his sacrifice hidden beneath steadiness. Kian burned restless, fire spilling out faster than he could contain. And Shun, innocent, uncertain, stepped forward into a spotlight that had already chosen him. The world outside shouted louder than their loss. Fans filled the night with light, banners, and belief. Even when the scoreboard slipped away, their pulse remained. And then came the call. Japan, a stage across the sea. A chance none of them expected, and one that would begin to change everything. Together, they walked through gates they had never crossed before. Success was theirs, but so were the secrets they carried, the sparks they tried to hide, the fractures no one had yet seen. Season 1 had ended. But for SNWB, the story was only beginning. Thanks for listening to Season 1 of We Are SNWB. It's been incredible bringing their world to life, from the practice rooms to the stage, and every heartbeat in between. Their stories will continue next year as I work on their next story arc, so stay tuned. In the meantime, if you have any ideas or want the story to go in a certain direction, let me know in the comments below. Your thoughts always shape how their world grows. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow so you don't miss the next chapter. And while you wait, SNWB's new song, Reaching Your Heart, is out now. Find the link in the description, and I hope you enjoy the music.